So members, I take this moment to welcome you to Reflections that Inspire. My name is Dr. Jane Amisi, and I'm running this program on Reflections that Inspire. It's a part of the meetings I have underpinning point. So in Reflections that Inspire, this is a leadership development forum where we as leaders, that is individuals in their various capacities, and from various and varied organizations, we meet together every Saturday, the first, second, and third Saturday of every month. We meet to discuss issues that pertain to growth of individuals and leaders. And these areas are varied. It could be in your family, it could be relationships, it could be your financial issues, it could be developing yourself to become a better person, and therefore you like to develop your character, you like to develop your spiritual being, and therefore you like to grow your soul and become a better person spiritually. You like to maybe increase your finances, and therefore you'd like to know more about how money works. So growth aspects are so many and they are varied, just as unique as we are. So the common thing that we share here are the principles of growth. However different we are in what we want, there are certain principles that govern what one needs to improve and to become better. In whatever area, the principles remain the same. So these are the principles that we normally discuss here. And to add on that, we welcome leaders who have been there. We welcome leaders who have experienced the journey through the journey where we want to take. I believe each of us is at a different stage of life. And therefore, we welcome guests every Saturday or as many times as we can to share with us their experience over time and from the insights that they give us, from the words of wisdom, from the practices, from the strategies. We learn something that is different in us or different from what we are doing. And with this increased awareness, whenever you adapt something or whenever you increase your level of awareness, there are chances that you are setting to the right course. So with that, once more, I take this time to welcome you again to this session. The running series for this session is Modeling Leadership. Modeling Leadership. And maybe just to introduce it a little bit, modeling leadership. I myself, as a young girl, I remember all that I was told ever was to work hard. My dad was a principal or a school headmaster, was a primary school headmaster, a very tough one. And all that he told us is that, Jane, you got to work hard. And remember those days during our time, our parents were no nonsense. And as a principal, it was double now. I really had no choice but to toe in. We went to school without knowing even why, but knowing that all that it takes to succeed is to go to school. That all it takes to succeed is to study and to work hard. From where I came from, there was nothing much to do with mentors. We never understood what it meant to follow or to learn from someone much. We could only admire from the aspect of, I wish I was like so-and-so. When we grew up, or when I grew up and went to high school, there is one teacher, I think, whom I can recall to date that really inspired me. I keep saying I'm going to look for him. I should look for him. The teacher came from a boys' high school, and he came to a girls' school where I was. And in his observation, ladies were just very lazy. And I think in the full meaning of lazy. And we didn't like the sciences. Actually, by Form 2, we had given up to maths, to physics, to chemistry. And I remember him coming to class and he would even call us baboons. These simple calculations you can't understand. And even with that, we did not. Until a time came when we were in Form 3, he could take half the lesson, just not really lecturing us, but telling us what life is. I come from Nyanza, and I remember I could tell us that this life is very tough. And he narrated it and gave an example of a bottle with a very wide bottom size and a very thin, long neck. And he told us that neck is the success route. And this bigger side is where the majority is. And everyone is squeezing themselves along this narrow way to reach out in life. And he told us that unless you work something miraculously and get to this long neck and get into another glass again with the similar shape, you're going to lie down here. I mean, you're going to remain in this round bottom. And under this round bottom are people who are going to carry mapera, if you know maperas. Maperas are guavas. And along Nyanza side, there is so much guavas. And the funny thing he told us about it is that you'll be married to a local person from that area. You'll be transporting your maperas in a huge gunia. And therefore, you and your husband will carry the huge gunia, one full one, and the maperas are 10 maperas are 10 cents. So that whole sack, as heavy as it is, and you'll either be using a donkey or you'll either be using a bicycle. For you to carry it, there is no chance that you'll carry 3 gunias or 3 sacks. You can only carry 1 sack in a day because the bicycle is too slow and it's carrying a heavy load, or the donkey cannot walk so fast. And therefore, you can only trade 1 sack a day. And despite such great effort, you are going to have 100 shillings a day. I think that story was so sad to me. That is so sad. Sorry, Agatha, I've muted you. I think that story really touched us as young girls, or I was amongst the people who were touched by that story. You know, it gave me a thought that there is something I really need to do because that is not the life I'd like to lead. And that shaped how I thought, that shaped my thinking of my life after high school. And I think from there, my life changed. I got focused. I became intentional in what I was doing. We had no models, but we had people who talked to us. Most of us who are focused on their personal development journey focus mostly on books. We read books. Indeed, there are books that have changed our thinking. There are books that have changed our characters. There are books that have helped us to earn and to live better lives. But let us be real for once. Even however good a book is, there comes a time when you feel, I need someone to break down this for me. I need someone to show me how to do it. I need someone to explain. I believe all of us who are here have been to such moments in their lives. And that is why we are discussing this topic of modeling. We all need someone to model. We all need someone who has been there, who knows it better than us, who knows a new thought to challenges, who knows a new strategy that we could adopt, who knows a new framework that we could follow. And human beings were created not to be alone. If you know the spiritual background, we are better together. And that is why we are here, including our professional lives. We do much better when we are together, when you have another thought, when you got another perspective, when you've got an insight. And that is our discussion for today. So today we are discussing modeling leadership, be it character, be it behavior, be it values, be it your environment, be it your vision, you can model. And friends and colleagues, all those who are here today, we have one of my senior, who is a friend of mine. He's been my senior at workplace. We have worked with him, and he's here today to talk to us and discuss the topic. He is Mr. Zablon Mabea. And I have his, just give me a moment. So I welcome you, Mr. Mabea. I'm just looking for the bio. Mr. Mabea, I'm looking for your bio. I think I don't find it.
Don't worry, what we do, we can just proceed.
We'll proceed, sure. I have it already in my phone, it's much better. Ms. Mabea has served for 33 years stint in the Ministry of Lands, and that is the ministry where I'm actually working, that is my ministry. Rising from a land officer to the Commissioner of Lands, and later as Secretary Lands. He is experienced in policy formulation, research, land information systems, dispute resolution, valuation, and land administration. During his tenure, he implemented and administered several statutes related to land and interests on land, notably legislations such as the Government Land Act, Trust Land, Land Acquisition Act, Registered Land Act. These are lands that govern land administration in Kenya. So he initiated the conversion of land title records and was involved and participated in drafting the National Land Policy. I believe many of us have heard about the National Land Policy, or these lands. They keep coming in our media and even news. So at least I believe today you are relating with one who has been there. And upon the promulgation of the new constitution, that is in 2010, Mr. Mabea, who was bachelor degree in land economics and MA in urban management, was involved in the formulation of crucial land laws, such as the Land Act, Land Registration Act, National Land Commission Act, Environment and Land Court. He has served on numerous boards and was a key resource in the Ministerial Performance Committee. He is a full member of ISK, Land Management Surveyors Chapter. Mr. Mabea, I take this time to personally welcome you and to appreciate you for bringing us up. He was the Commissioner of Lands when I joined the ministry, and that is way back in '99. And one of the things that I remember so much, Mr. Mabea, is a time when you were really mad with us. You took us to the boardroom and you were trying to help us understand something. And we seemed not to care, not to understand. And fun enough, it was the mission and the vision of our department. We didn't know. And I think from that time, it challenged us. It challenged some of us. So Mr. Mabea, welcome to take us through this session. Maybe just begin by saying something about yourself and maybe hello to the members. Welcome.
Good evening, members. Thank you so much, Jane, for inviting me to this forum. In addition to what Jane has said, I'm a family man. I have a wife. I have 3 children. I also have grandchildren. And so when you talk about reflections that inspire, it's an area that is so dear to all of us because we are living in an environment that things have changed so drastically. When Jane says that she grew up and what she knew from the parents is work hard. And I think in a sense that is inspiration because that actually was our journey. It was my journey. Personally, my father was also a head teacher, a very tough one, very harsh. But I think they did put discipline in our lives. I know with the new dispensation and the new generation, our approach is slightly different. By the way, these days you can't beat somebody's child and expect to be safe. We are the first to take the teachers to court. We who were brought up with the cane, and who have been brought up to a point where we are. So it's something to reflect upon. Now, Jen, I just want to thank you for inviting me to talk. I always been wondering what to discuss about this topic, because one of the things which bothers me so much is that with what we have been seeing globally, even coming to our country, the kind of leaders we have had, look at the MPs who can walk out and start demonstrating, start demolishing or doing this. See the kind of following they have and the kind of things they do. Is whether we have really any role models. I think looking at it critically is that we have lost, if not 2 generations, more than 2 generations, because now the way we think, the way we do things, because leaders influence. So if you see a leader who is violent, you start behaving the same. Leadership generally is a long process. And I want to use the background I love most. If you go to the Bible, the book of Genesis, when our first parents, Adam and Eve, disobeyed God and sinned, what is very interesting is that after God assured them that He will come and sort out the mess for them by sending His Son, Adam lived for over 900 years. And from literature that is not available in the Bible, but from other literature, we see that he lived that long, over 9 generations. And what he used to tell this generation is that, here I messed. This is where I messed. But this is what God has promised to restore us. And of course, there are those who had, but I like one family of Seth. And the Bible says that when Seth was born, then again, people started worshiping God. So you find that leadership and modeling, when you read through the human history, you always find that there are leaders who have had great impact upon their followers or those who are close to them. One specific leader also is when you go to the book of Exodus 17, there's a leader by the name Joshua. Exodus 17 verse 10 says, Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. This is the first time I'm seeing Joshua. Then the next thing you will find Joshua in Joshua chapter 1, after a period of about 40 years. He's obscured there with Moses, learning with Moses. And ultimately, we see actually Moses mentoring Joshua. And by the time Moses is dying, God says, now my servant has died, take the mantle. And so we see somebody in the caliber of Moses developing one, mentoring one, and ultimately he took over the mantle of leadership. He was a great military leader, and he was able to lead the children of Israel. And so the question comes then, as parents, because I think most of us in this forum, we are parents, we are grandparents, are we can I say, it's a question I just want to pose, whether we are really equal to our calling. What are we doing to mentor these young people? As Jane was reflecting, is that sometimes it's difficult to improve yourself if you have no one to follow. And the environment we grew up in lands, I found very few mentors. One time I was talking to a former boss, a deputy commissioner, and told him, things are happening here like this and this and this. No, we have to stop this mess. You know what he told me? If you are not eating, somebody's eating in your name. And I was a sad man, and I used to be hurt. And so it kind of made me a bit sad for several years until I came up and said, no, I think I started working on my own way. And no wonder when Jane says that one time I woke up, I was very mad about it. I was actually, because the reason why you have a mission as an organization is to help us to focus to a direction. Just like as we go out to play as a team, we know that actually our focus is to win a game. So we have to work and galvanize all our efforts. And also, Jen, I want to say that personally, I had to develop my own vision and mission statement. I know I might have shared because I started some programs there discussing leadership those days. But I had to develop my own. And because of my staff, I remember I had a mission statement saying to create a nurturing environment of order, truth and love, and happiness, and provide opportunities for every person to be responsibly independent and to be effectively interdependent to serve worthy purpose in society. And I always used to go through that because you cannot, in an environment where you are working with others, be able to achieve if you do not have a clear perspective and direction to take. So the question perhaps I want to answer, because I asked Jen to formulate the questions for me, is how do we develop a personal growth plan, or how do we improve yourself? I know Jen mentioned that through reading, yes, that's very important. But one thing is that, and sometimes we also get trapped into this, trapped into feeling that a particular plan is better than the other. We are all different. And as such, we find that as individuals, we have different approaches to handling this. For some, reading does. And I can tell you the people who read are able to understand, sometimes are able to improve themselves. One of the things I've found that in this era, you have access to even audio recordings from various leaders all over the globe, people in their captains in such industries. I can also tell you that one of the people who influenced me so much is actually Gandhi. Gandhi lived in the 1800, but the way how he handled himself and what he wrote was a great influence on me and in most of the things that I used to do. So there are some also who get or who learn a lot from maybe watching documentaries. And but at the root of this or at the root of personal growth is to know yourself, to know myself. What works for me best? If you cannot find leaders in the, say, in your neighborhood, can you find a leader somewhere? As I've mentioned, we had very few role models in lands. I don't know, Jenny, whether you can agree with me that, but we had very few models. But sometimes also in church, we can find models, we can find some good pastors, not commercial pastors. We can find some good models. We can find good models, say within our professional bodies, we can find people. I remember when I grew up, there was this one old man in our village. Whenever there was an issue or a dispute being discussed, whenever he rose to speak, after finishing his talk and giving his opinion, you will hear everybody say, if so and so has said that, it is like that. And that marks the end of the issue. Whether we have such men today, women today, I don't know. But I think it's important then, as an individual, to make a deliberate, say, policy or move and a commitment to walk in a certain direction. We are parents. Do you know that our children, depending on where you come from, I come from Nyanza, ugali is the basic food. The child does not start eating food until after breastfeeding, the child will see food being eaten. But if you bring some strange meal to this child, even when he's a grown up, if he has never seen it, becomes tricky for even the child to start unless he sees somebody eating. So what we do at our very basic levels in the houses has a bearing and influence on those who follow us. And so at the root of our personal growth, it is you, it is me. And then what kind of material do I want to take in? Because fortunately, as children, we are born blank, nothing. And therefore, what we start scribbling in the minds of these children will last forever. So we have a challenge also as parents to start grooming them from that area. Have you ever realized that when we are getting aged, the things you did when you were 1 year old, 2 years old, actually they are very clear in your mind even up to now. So it's important that what we do at our personal level, what we do to those who look upon us or unto us, we tailor things that can be able to develop them or to help them develop, just like the teacher who was harassing you. Now, number two, how do you develop your strengths? Let me say, this becomes very tricky to most people to appreciate or to identify the strengths. But the easiest way is through observation. And you can look at the following, basically. What area of your life do others find difficult, but you find very easy? There's something that you find so easy to do or to deal with, but others find difficult. If you find such an area, like now, if somebody called me right now and told me I want a sermon on stewardship. I will not require any preparation. I just walk to the pulpit with my Bible and I will preach about stewardship because I'm so passionate about it. Because I know from the beginning when God was creating man in his own image, in his own likeness, he needed this man. He created us practical people for a practical purpose. Simply, he needed a man to manage his creation. And no wonder that's why he says, he puts Adam, Eve in the garden and tells them to take care, tender it, or take good care of it. Meaning that we were created for a purpose, and that purpose is practical to be able to manage. So you look at one area in your life that you can handle. Number two, I know most of us have sometimes received, I would say, unsolicited compliments and praises for others for something done, well done. Sometimes some things, there are some things you do, but you are not even very conscious. But you come to realize that actually you have a natural way of doing certain things. So you will find actually that's an area you could develop further, and it's an area that you are able to do very well. So you also see or listen to what people say about you and what you do. Can people be able to say you are honest? And can they be able to whatever? So the thing is, look at areas because there are people are able to observe and see what you are able to do. Even as young people, even our parents could be able to look at us and say, this one is good in this and this one is good in that. No wonder that's why the Wasungus have beaten us in the game because they start observing children from very, very early. I've seen children going to some of the big schools around here. Brooks, is it Brook whatever? And you take a child who's about 1 year old and they just give them things and they just look at what the children are doing and they're able to identify their areas of interest. And so it's easier to identify your areas of strength by the compliments or observations made by your colleagues who know you well. Now, a third way perhaps is the area of life where your opinion carries a lot of weight or where people prefer your wisdom. Not all of us are gifted in all areas, but you will find that there is an area where somebody will just come and consult you simply because they see that you have a gift in that area. So that one I will limit it to those 3 points. And then the most difficult bit then as I was discussing with Jane is how do you extract and apply your learning? How do you, because this is where the main challenge is. When you go to the book of James, chapter 1, verse 22, I just want to read something there. James 1:22. The Bible says, but prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. Doers of the word. And my main word is doers. As a principle, do we do that which is right? This is the biggest challenge for all of us. Challenge in this sense. You know the truth, But in many cases, we do not know what to do or we do not do it. I can give you an example. There's a supermarket I normally go to, and sometimes you go to the parking, you find people coming out of the supermarket with trolleys and they leave them after parking the goods in their vehicles. They leave the trolley in the parking. You look at it, it doesn't make sense. You inconvenience the next person coming to park. So as a police, I've always made, if I have come with a trolley, I'll put my things in the car and return the trolley to the where it's supposed to be. How about when you are driving in this city and you have come to the roundabout, whether it's Kenyatta hospital around there, and the light turns from amber to red. Do we stop? We know the right thing is to stop, but it becomes difficult to do it. So, truth be told, in many cases, it's not that we don't know what to do. It is more of us not doing what we know. So I want to pose challenge to all of us here. And a good test is to make a list of all the things you learned over time that you committed to do, which you have not done. I think it is a good place for us to start. There are things that we committed to do, but we have not done. Can we now start there? For the simple reason, as you commit to do what you know to do, you gain proficiency in execution and you start setting in a new trajectory, which will ultimately eliminate procrastination in implementing things. So let's learn to obey, to follow, and to do. This one comes at an individual level. In our church, we have a doctrine called the Great Controversy. Controversy between Christ and the Satan, controversy between evil and good. Most people tend to think that the controversy will be won collectively. The church will go out and start fighting. But this controversy cannot be won collectively. It can only be won at individual level, at a personal level. Yes, if I know this is the right thing to do, then I have to implement it, execute it at a personal level. And therefore, as you do, or as I do, you'll be surprised. God will be able to locate you at that point for your honesty, and not only locate you, he will be able, through you, influence many others who are following or looking unto you as a mentor or as a model. So it's important that we make that commitment to do that which we are required to do. The other question which I found very interesting was, do you have a long-term model or models whom you observe and learn from? It's a difficult question. I don't know how, again, you want me to answer this, but one thing is this. Yes, you can have a long-term model. I have a friend of mine, he has grown-up children, and they encountered some challenges I will not mention here. And what he did, he just traveled home for 2 weeks and sat down with his mother. I don't know what they were discussing. When he came back, a man who was so disillusioned, so sad, he said, I was found a solution in my mother. So you can have a long-term model, and also depending on the environment, some things change. You can also get new models on the way. But overall, the principle is the same, that anybody who mentors, of course, uh, has a goal, and the mentoring has a goal for professional growth or for personal growth. So if somebody is mentoring and leading you to a direction that will develop you further, that's a good mentor. I know sometimes we tend to take our mothers at home. My mother didn't go to school, but I always find her a very good person in many things. I can tell you that when I was a young boy, my father was a teacher, my mother was just a housewife, and of course a farmer. She could get all the money and tell me, make a small box of mabati and put it there and tell me, now, in case I die, use that money to educate your siblings. You know, she had a vision, in spite of the fact that she did not learn or go to a formal school. And so, one, I learned from her that education is important. Number two, she actually had a burden that the siblings or my siblings also learn, go to school and develop. So we can have long-term mentors in our lives. But of course, this is more personal for all of us. Who is a good mentor? I like what my friend, a friend of mine told me. A good mentor is a person whose past is your future. It is every person who has walked the path you want to walk and who can tell you where all the pitfalls and landmines are. You know, a mentor has gone through a process, he has encountered challenges. And as you sit with that mentor, he's able to show you that, you know, this side has landmines. And so is a man or a lady who has a passion to see you succeed where perhaps he or she failed. It's a person who is able to help you navigate through the challenges of life. That is a good mentor. He must, or she must have a passion. Of course, a mentor sees the blind spots. And by experience, they have gone through life, they are able to see all these blind spots and they can be able to lead you. Of course, a mentor also should not be intimidated by your success. So sometimes there are mentors who tend to think that because you are either so rich or whatever, cannot help you. By the way, the other day I was reading about something Bill Gates, and when somebody asked him, can you allow somebody poor or somebody who's not so well up to marry your daughter? And the way he responded, it was so good. He said, you see, there are so many men or women around who are poor, but they have lots of money. And there are men around who don't have fat bank accounts, but they are rich. Their richness, their wealth is in terms of how they create wealth, how they package themselves in terms of creating wealth. So basically, a good mentor has a great or a bigger picture in life. So a good mentor also should appreciate and I can be happy to see you grow even beyond him or her. That is a good mentor. It's a person you can trust. And therefore, should not be a person who should be scared that tomorrow you'll be so big and therefore lose his place. But he should be able to be selfless in terms of seeing you grow and be happy to see you grow. I can see it's almost 9. I want to stop there and ask Jane whether Is something else you want me to add? Or there are questions? Maybe we talk together so we wind up.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Mabea. Thank you so much for this presentation. And I really appreciate the perspective you've taken. As you were going through, I was thinking in my mind, we've had several speakers, and of course, I perceived the difference in perspective or how you approached it. And why I appreciate it so much is that we are human beings, and I strongly believe that as human beings, we are spiritual beings. And I believe that there is an inner image or an inner personality of us, the spiritual, the soul, that controls and I think dictates our activities, our behavior in general. And I strongly believe that unless our inner being changes, there is little that is happening on the outer side. So as much as we've had our speakers, it's been from the aspect of activities that we do, the outward behaviors and what we can do. I like your approach because it is new. You've given us something new. You've started from the spiritual aspect. You've read from the Bible. You started with the story of Joshua and who? I'm bringing my Bible. I hope I won't say the wrong name. Joshua and Moses.
Adam.
And sorry?
Adam.
And Adam, yeah. You started it from very far, and that was from the very beginning of ourselves, believe ourselves today. And that has great implications to us. If it was done there, then our very nature should follow in this aspect. So members, I have notes, almost 10 pages of notes, but I would give you the first chance to appreciate, to ask a question, to inquire, to ask, to share your insight, to share your views, since these are reflections that inspire. I believe you're getting inspired wherever you are. We have had Mr. Mabea. Mr. Mabea is a former commissioner of lands. He introduced us to what land is, and the farther I've been, I hope, Mr. Mabea, I'm a good example. You are my mentor just by being there as the commissioner.
You're a good one.
Oh, thank you. See. So members, welcome. You give your views, share with us what you've learned, share with us a new experience. You may as well ask Mr. Mabea some questions. Welcome. So Mr. Mabea, maybe as they get prepared, I would like to know, you told us you developed development plan, your growth plan at some level. Do you still follow it to date?
That's a good question. You know, as long as we have breath, you have to have a vision. First, God has endowed us with life. And for Christians, they have a vision which is beyond this earth. But most human beings who do not know God, they have a vision which goes up to 70 years when you retire, or 60 years when you retire. That ends there. But then Christians have a vision beyond the 70. So it's a trajectory to heaven. And so if you are alive, then you have to have a vision for your life and continue learning. By the way, I've realized that actually I'm learning more out here than when I was inside at lands. I think at lands I was so much, I would say, bombarded and also pushed into a corner. But the kind of things I'm learning now, They're quite very, very interesting. So I think we continue learning as long as we have breath. And that, to me, is so fulfilling, and it gives me a sense of hope. And then the other thing is, as you grow, because you will find grandchildren coming, you have to also be able to have new perspectives to be able to relate with them. Otherwise, you'll be that old man, and that will be the end of your story, and you look miserable.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Yes, we need to have growth plans. You need to have a direction. And we need to have somewhere you are leading to, you are heading to. Otherwise, you land anywhere. You'll head anywhere. And who is following you if you're landing anywhere? Those are thoughts that we have to think over. We have to reflect and see them and understand them and believe them. There are things that happen in life that you could only identify with when you have a vision. Someone told me there are things that are called markers. The way you read and you highlight with a marker pen, red, orange, green. Such highlights, you may call them highlights, they're necessary for review. They're necessary when you don't have time to go through the whole. Like today, I've written notes. They are short. I have a highlighter even now. I highlight what I need to review or what I need to mention at the end of the discussion. In life, that happens as well. There are things that we go through life. There are people that we meet in life that unless we take that unique moment in our lives, maybe 5 minutes a day, maybe 10 minutes a day, to really sit quietly and think over what happened over your life, to think over whom you met today, to think over what happened to you today. You may never realize what that meant to you. These are highlighters in life. These are people or events that can literally change your life. You may meet the person much later, or you might remember that I need to talk to someone in Lance. And I remember Jenna Miss. She was in Lance, and she can help me with that. That is a highlighter in your life. But such things happen only when you think through them. And that is why we are in reflections that we inspire. The discussions that we have today, there are things that happen in your life. Maybe you've never thought of having a growth plan. Most of us think of financial plan. I remember when we started work, I had a plan of everything, but I never thought that I can only grow so far. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot teach what you do not know. You got to have it first. You cannot build a character that you don't have. You got to develop it first. So to develop everything that is outside there, got to start from inside of you. And anything that comes from me is personal growth. And that is why we are focusing on personal growth as an aspect of leadership growth that is very necessary. Maybe just a few more questions. Someone who wants to ask a question before we conclude.
Jane, can you hear me?
Very well, Mr. Nabutola. You're welcome.
Yeah, somehow I managed to join using the phone. I didn't think it was possible, but thanks. And I want to recognize the presence of everybody else, especially Mr. Mabea. I appreciate what Mr. Mabea said, quoting extensively from the Bible. And what comes to mind is the whole issue about, for example, humility. And I'll cite two. One is the Lord Jesus himself, who was the epitome of humility. And in our trying to emulate him, I think we get difficulty because he was too humble, very, very, almost like servitude. Jane, you and I have discussed servant leadership. And there he is modeling about, one of the things he talked about is the issue of gratitude. That he healed 10 and only 1 came back. So the issue of gratitude, right there is the whole issue about, being humble enough to appreciate that somebody did pull you out of the matope. And then the other one, again, about the Lord Jesus, was about who is my neighbor. And he gave the example of the Good Samaritan, somebody who didn't know the other person, but found somebody who needed support, who needed help, and he helped that person without expecting anything back, without much thought. And also said there are other people who are possibly more pious, but who just passed by, like the priest who sidestepped when they saw that and that. The reason I'm bringing that up is that one of the things I have learned in life, and this one I'll quote the late Cardinal Michael Morris Otunga, is how humble he was, how so humble that sometimes it bothered me, because he was at the apex of the Catholic society in Kenya, but he kept driving that little Peugeot 205 when his bishops and archbishops were driving Audis and Mercedes and so on. But it looks like not many people followed him. So the challenge is, why do people not follow what should be a very obviously good example? That's the question to Mr. Mabea. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things we do not realize that there is strength in humility. Christ himself was God. And to the extent that he could leave a holy place, even I take a basic example here is, the president comes from State House and says, I'm going to pick one room in a slum and stay there. Basically, that is what he did. But he had a very, very clear objective. He was coming down, giving all the good things, the glory in heaven, because he had a burden to save humanity. And by the way, humility is a very, very powerful tool. And I think one of the things why we find society rotting is when people are so proud, self-centered, they do not want to serve, but everything they are doing, they are serving on themselves. This is what is even killing most of our institutions. You elect politicians, and he feels because he is now an MP, everybody should work for him, and he should be able to do everything to be able to get wealth. We lack this element here, and I think if only people can know that we are ultimately answerable to a mighty God, then they will be humble. Abraham, when he was called, God in a vision showed him the city that he has built. When Abraham saw the city, he said, I have no business doing another city here. I better live in tents, awaiting to leave that city whose founder is God. He shows a much bigger picture. You know, come to even our places of work. You know, we are given the responsibilities, and you think because you are in that position, you are so a very important person. You forget that actually it is God, and God says He owns you. You read First Corinthians 6:19. He says, "I've redeemed you. You do not belong to yourself. You belong to me." God has given you an opportunity to be in that office, in that position, to serve God Himself. So when I'm rendering service faithfully to somebody who's created by God, actually I'm serving God. So if this can come, if all of us can be able to realize that actually wherever we are is an area that God has given us an opportunity to serve God Himself by being faithful to our calling, then we'll be humble, we'll be able to do our things, knowing that actually whom we are serving. I can tell you, senior, that up to this day, if you ask me, I was appointed to that office, I don't even know who appointed me. But I was just called that changes have happened. And one person came and told me, you know, this position you require political support. You know, I told him to the face, I don't know how I was appointed, but I know it's God who did it. I'll work, I'll serve God. And the day my day comes and I'm told move out, I'll move out. And I'll tell God two things. Where I did well, glory be to your name, because it's not by my power. Where I have failed you, I ask for forgiveness. And that gave me the freedom to work freely without fear. Thank you. I know I've talked in many words.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mabea. Thank you so much, Mr. Nabutola. Wow, that was a big discussion. I think we are limited by time. Maybe I'll consider raising it to 1.5 hours for a better discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Mabea, for the presentation of modeling leadership. You've given us examples. You've given us great examples. You've given us observation, learning through observation. How do you develop your strengths? And that is through observation. And that is so much in relation to working with a mentor or a coach or someone who is your role model. It can also be on yourself. You observe what are your strengths. You can get feedbacks, which is the breakfast of champions. You want to be a better leader, seek feedback, positive feedback, negative feedback, take it with a lot of humility. There are areas of life where your opinion carry weight or wisdom. And then on learning how to extract and apply your learning, he gave a very good challenge. That is of our real behavioral characters, and particularly me, one that really annoys me in the supermarket is where someone puts the packages on the, to the cashier, and then they leave you the person who is coming next with the trolley in front of you. Times I look at them with not so good eyes, but I gently push the trolley away at times. So is also mentioned aspects of commitment, committing to what you are doing, other than giving excuses or things that would take you backwards, away from your vision, commitment. And as we all know, you commit to something you believe in. You commit to something that is of value to you. If you want to be a mentor or you want to be a mentee, in all, if you're there, whether you are the role model or you are the one someone is modeling. And then is also mentioned about long-term models. We need long-term models. I hope each of us, as we are here today, you got someone who is your role model. And I would urge us that, no, maybe not just a role model, have a mentor, irrespective of age, irrespective of position. Have a mentor, have someone to encourage you, someone who has been there before you, who knows the way. And who is a good mentor? He's given us a number of issues, someone who's been in your future, the future that you're looking to go to, someone who is passionate to see you succeed, someone who can help you to navigate through the changes, someone who sees the blind spots in you. There is so much that you do not know about yourself, or maybe you cannot accept, or you think you are, but you are not, which is very common to us, the humankind. There's someone, and Mr. Nabutala has also added a very important aspect of humility. Humility is important. I think we've also discussed the topic of humility, but humility helps us to really accept whom we are. It gives us a true perspective of whom we are. That is what helps us to grow in the face of challenges and to bounce back after failure. If you humble yourselves, you are able to learn through someone. So members, we are way past our time. Thank you so very much for joining this session. Thank you for sticking with us, even past the few hours that we've gone over. Mr. Mabea, thank you so much for taking this session. We've enjoyed, we've taken your insights, and I urge members that let us apply them. It is not just knowing, it lies in the application. Our growth lies in the application. Thank you so much. We meet here at Reflections That Inspire every first 3 Saturdays of the month from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So we are in next week and the other week. The last Saturday of the month, we relax. So thank you so much. Have a blessed weekend and have a good night. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Be blessed too.